My name is Nate Spack, and I will be talking about segment 4 of chapter 1 today. So, a few psychological myths to start off. First, the myth that we only use 10% of our brains. This has been proven untrue by numerous studies. No scientific data supports this, even though two-thirds of Americans believe this, and one-third of psychology majors actually believe this. Having kids listen to Mozart will make them smarter. Now, those in the business of selling books, CDs, DVDs are the ones who tend to promote this myth. However, there have been tests run that prove this myth untrue. Next, subliminal messages can persuade you to buy things you wouldn't otherwise buy. Despite subliminal messages being given in some advertisements, no evidence that the messages can persuade you into buying anything has been uncovered. And finally, heritable traits such as mental disorders and IQ cannot be altered by experience. This is actually proven to be false, as many studies have shown. IQ and mental disorders, especially in early childhood, have proven to be altered by experiences. So the four principles of psychology. First, the machine-like brain. This brain, this machine that is the human brain, is constructed of genes and powered by the fuel, if you will, of chemicals and electricity. Unconscious processes, we're only aware of a small portion of our own mental activity, so there's a lot of stuff our brain's doing in the background that we're not conscious of, that we don't realize. For example, unconscious bias, our heart beating. These are examples of unconscious processes that are going on that we're not consciously aware of. Social influences. Us as humans, we might end up modifying our behaviors and sometimes our beliefs even, or remembrance of certain events because of those around us. And finally, experience matters, especially learning in this case. Experiences, including learning, can alter the physical structure and function of the brain. And finally, these principles can be memorized using the acronym MUSE, which is commonly referred to. So then researchers did a study on detecting racial associations with crime. So the question they sought to answer was, do ideas about race affect our visual perception? And the researchers hypothesized that people's tendency to identify weapons in a blurry picture may be affected if they're reminded of African Americans. So in this test, they brought in a bunch of white college students to look at a blurry image of a book and a gun, and these images progressively got less blurry over 40 frames. And the students, without them knowing, were shown an image of a black face, a white face, or an abstract line for 50 milliseconds. 50 milliseconds is not enough time for someone to consciously realize that they've seen an image. So this is why it was shown to them for that short. So what they get as the results, the students recognize the book at roughly the same time frame, regardless of whether or not a black or white face was shown to them or an abstract line. However, when a gun, which is obviously a crime-related object, when they were shown a gun, the students who were shown a blackface happened to recognize the gun at an earlier frame, despite them not being conscious of the fact that they were shown a blackface. So some conclusions they drew from this were that seeing a blackface improves one's ability to see a crime-relevant object, and that seeing a white face makes one's ability of identifying a crime-relevant object worse. So these results suggest that associating African Americans with crime may cause us to recognize crime relevant objects more quickly. I'm Nate Speck, and that was my presentation.